Today we're learning how to write linear equations in slope-intercept form. Now some of the questions that you'll have in the homework will give you straight out the slope being m in our slope-intercept form equation and the y-intercept, which is b in our equation. So if you remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. And m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. So if they give you the slope and the y-intercept, then all you have to do is plug those numbers into the equation where they go. So we'd take the -2 they give us for m and plug that in for m, and the 5 that they give us for the y-intercept and plug that in for b, and that's our equation. Now some of them won't be that obvious. Sometimes they're going to give you a picture of a graph and they're going to ask you to determine the equation from the given picture. In example 2, they give you a graph that looks like this, and they want you to determine the equation based on this picture. So what we're looking for is two key things. We're looking for the y-intercept, where it crosses the y-axis, right there, and the slope, which is the rise, or the vertical change, over the run, or the horizontal change. So that makes our slope -2 over 5. So all we have to do is plug that into our equation, our slope-intercept form. So we get y equals our slope, -2/5 x, plus our y-intercept, 3. That's all we have to do to write our equation. Sometimes they'll give you a graph with 2 points on it. For instance, in example 3, they give you one with the point at 0, -5, and also a point at 3, -1. And they want you to determine the equation of the infinite line that connects both of them. So again, to write it in slope-intercept form, we need to know two things: the slope and the y-intercept. Now the y-intercept is given to us because the y-intercept occurs whenever x is 0, when it hits the y-axis. So that's the first point they gave us. Then we need to determine the slope, which is rise over run. So between those 2 points, it rises 4 units in the positive direction, and it runs 3 units in the positive direction. And so our slope will be 4 over 3. So our finished equation is y equals 4 over 3 for our slope times x plus our y-intercept, which is -5. And just to clean it up and make it as simplified as possible, we're going to change that to -5. And that's our answer. Sometimes they'll give you those points in function notation and not give you the picture to go with it. In example 4, we're given f of 0 equals 5 and f of 4 equals 17. So the first thing I want you to notice here is that the first point they gave you has an x value of 0. See, this is your x, this is your kind of like your y because it's your output. Same over here. But our y-intercept occurs when x is 0, so that means that 5 is our y-intercept. So when we're going to write our equation, instead of doing y equals mx plus b, we're going to do f of x equals mx plus b because we're in function notation, and we know that our b, our y-intercept, is 5. So now we just got to find the slope that goes with the x. So we're going to use the 2 points that these give us. It says that when x is 0, our output is 5. When x is 4, our output is 17. So what we do is we plug those into our slope equation. We subtract our y's, 17 minus 5, and subtract our x's. And since I started with 17 on top, I'm going to start with 4 on the bottom. So on top I get 12, bottom I get 4, and 12 divided by 4 is 3. So that is the slope for my equation. Now I'm going to give you two sets of points, and I want you to find the equations that go with them. So the first set is f of 0 equals -2, and f of 8 equals 4. Second set is f of -3 equals 6, and f of 0 equals 5. So take a second, pause the video, and find the equations that fit those points, and then unpause the video and we'll go through them together. Okay, so for the first one, we see that when x is 0, we get an output of -2, so that's our y-intercept. Now we just have to calculate our slope. So we're taking our change in y, which is one output minus the other output, and our change in x, which is that first output minus our other output. We get 6/8, which reduces to 3/4. So our equation is f of x equals 3/4 x, that's from our slope, and our y-intercept we said came from the point where x is 0, so we got -2. Now for the second equation, do the same thing. Notice that our second point is our y-intercept, because that's where the x is 0. Then we got to calculate our slope. So we'll take the difference between our y's, 5 minus 6, over the same order differences for our x's, 0 minus -3. On top we get -1. On bottom, 0 minus -3 is +3. So our slope is -1/3. So we have f of x equals -1/3 x plus 5. Okay, last example. A recording studio charges musicians an initial fee, and when you hear initial, think y-intercept. So an initial fee of $50 to record an album. Studio time costs an additional $35 per hour. So that per hour is a rate of change, which we can see as our slope. And so when we want to write an equation, we see that our cost of renting the studio is a function of the amount of time we spend in the studio. And so if t is the number of hours that we spend in the studio, we're paying $35 for every one of those t hours that we spend in the studio. Then we have to add on to that the initial fee of $50. Okay, so our initial fee is our y-intercept, and our cost per hour is our slope. Then we need to find the total cost of recording an album that takes 10 hours of studio time. So if it takes 10 hours of studio time, should that be going in for C, the cost, or T, the time? T, the time. So we plug it in for T, and 35 times 10 is 350. And 350 plus 50 gives us a total cost of $400 for 10 hours of studio time. Alright, well if you have any questions, feel free to ask. If not, you can watch the video again if you need some extra coverage on it. Otherwise, you can start on your homework.